This week on Talking Royals, we check out Meghan and Harry's moves. I love it! You can imagine those moves sort of like an all-boys posh school where the DJ's throwing down some hip-hop and everyone's dancing a little bit awkwardly. Yeah. Prince William sets out his vision for the Duchy of Cornwall.
That William is really here, a man on a mission, and wants to sort of be a positive force for good, and wants to sort of modernise the duchy, but without losing its community spirit.
And Chris gives us the exclusive on his Silver Jubilee memories, and trust me, they're amazing. Cannot believe as royal editor, we have never ever heard this.
I've worked with Chris.
I've never shared it
I've worked
before,
with Chris for 8 years, and
he didn't know the toffee story.
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Charlene White and Chris and Lizzie are back from their flying visits, their whistle-stop tour of Canada with the King and Queen. So how's it been? Lots of people sort of really interested in this Canada trip, weren't they?
Yeah, actually, even just looking at the views of our discussion last week, a lot of interest in the visit. We were there longer than the King and Queen, who were there. We worked out just about 24 hours, wasn't it? Land Monday afternoon, go Tuesday
almost
afternoon.
Exactly 24.
We then recorded our podcast, as you know, because you were doing it. And then I think it has sparked a huge amount of interest. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Go on.
I was just going to say that I think since we spoke last week, they've obviously reflected on the visit, those around the King, and we're told that he was incredibly touched at the reception that he received in Canada. Obviously, the second realm that he's visited. It's obviously kind of a big tick in terms of the firsts that the King has had since he became a monarch. We've now had visits to realms. We've had first trooping, we've had first King's Christmas broadcast. So I think they feel like it was the final piece in the puzzle. And there was also a little bit of, in terms of his cancer, we still know that he is receiving weekly treatment. But I think it is felt that what they have learned is that with the cancer, it is something you can manage, and that is exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, and he did really well.
You did?
Yes, they say learning to live with the cancer. Yeah. I think that's basically where he's at the moment.
But look, I think the most important thing, though, about Canada is last week you promised that you were going to bring me back a gift, because that's the deal.
Yeah.
You guys go on these royal visits, royal tours or what have you. Yeah. I have to stay at base. So in order for me to feel like I am definitely a part of this royal team, you have to bring me back gifts.
So we had a long discussion about this. So we're in Montreal, which is in Quebec, the French-speaking part of Canada, which actually in itself was really interesting. I could do a whole podcast episode on wandering around everything that looks North American, but everyone's speaking French. I found that really quite sort of mind-blowing. But Lizzie wanted to get you a duck.
A real one?
No, not a real duck.
Sort of duck
the ducks for the bath. They had these. There was a whole duck shop with different character ducks, and they had one that was a Canadian Mountie duck.
Oh, nice.
It was pretty big, and Chris was like,
"Can't get into expenses."
There's no way you're.
And then we looked at the nodding moose.
Oh, my kids would have liked that.
Yeah, that was also ruled out by Chris. So we have got you.
This fine bottle of maple syrup. Because what else do you bring back from Canada? It's even in French, actually. Sirop d'érable. There we go.
That's very good French. Well done. And thank you very much for my gift.
The kids will like
I
that
love
as
it.
well.
They really will. I might even get up and cook them pancakes in the morning, and then they can have some of this.
Oh, well, we want some.
Auntie Lizzie and Uncle Chris got them some maple syrup.
We want some photos of those. Those pancakes, please.
I'll take some pictures.
That obviously means every time you go away, you have to bring us something back. So let's.
No. Did I say that was the deal? No, I did not.
I think we can expect, in terms of his travel, though, we're expecting 2025 to look very normal in terms of travel. We have seen that play out. So we can expect an autumn tour from the King, although we don't know yet where that will be.
Okay, now I've got to get into this because I saw the Harry and Meghan dancing video on Nadia Sawala's Instagram yesterday. So Nadia obviously worked with On Loose, and she'd posted it up on Instagram, and she was asking people, what tricks and tips they used when they were wanting to bring on baby during labour. And I absolutely loved it. And on her Instagram, such a positive reaction to the video. I know it wasn't positive everywhere, but look, if you haven't seen it, take a look.
baby mama. She gon' put it on you. She gon' do that, baby mama.
I love it. Honestly, I saw this and I have to say, I don't think there's anything more relatable to parents around the world than seeing a couple trying to bring on baby.
It's interesting that Meghan said that they tried the spicy food and was it
Some
acupuncture?
walking and acupuncture.
There is another thing that you can try, of course, that all
I can't imagine that they wanted to
speak
film
about,
that, put that up on Instagram.
Sorry, what podcast
decided
is
to
this?
do the twerking.
Yeah, so this was, sorry, we'll move on.
It's Lilibet. It's when
Princess Lilibet
it was her
turned
birthday. We should
4.
It was her birthday.
She turned
and
4
therefore,
this week,
yes.
and a whole series of photos of Lilibet with both Harry and Meghan were posted on Instagram, and then
they could have stopped there.
And then in the afternoon, our time, UK time, Meghan posted this
Just quickly,
video.
look at this one. You actually see Lilibet's face in that one there.
The middle one,
which is very, very unusual
Lilibet.
because normally you get back of head. Normally there was one, I think, recently of Archie with a big flower sort of covering up, which is, I kind of think, look, you're either going to put your kids on your Instagram or you're not, and sort of to put them on and then half obscure their face.
It's very normal. When I don't post pictures of my
do.
kids up on Instagram, so I do sort of fancy things to obscure their
faces.
And I guess the thing is if you can see like one of her eyes is sort of a quarter of her face.
Right.
So if you saw her on the street, you wouldn't necessarily know that was her.
I think that's what's been interesting though is that I think, Meghan, since she's had her Instagram account, we are seeing quite a sort of personal look at their lives. It's not just the business side of what Meghan's doing. We're seeing kind of behind the scenes of family life for them. And that is, the content is increasing, I think, the amount of stuff that we're seeing. And
well, she got like 3 million followers on Instagram or something. So.
Well, I mean, we posted it up on our TikTok at ICV News and we had like 10 million views and it's still increasing. And it's really interesting the sort of comments you get from a TikTok audience, which tends to be a lot younger compared to, say, a Twitter audience.
You looked at me when you said a lot younger.
I'll explain why in a minute.
Definitely did.
I'll explain why in a minute. Compared to, say, Twitter, which is an older audience, and on TikTok it was overwhelmingly positive compared to the nonsense and abuse you tend to get on the other platform, not on Twitter, but on X is of course what it's called now. But on TikTok, Loud Cleopatra said, never understood why they get so much hate. They're so relatable, good for them. Kamal said, they're human, they don't need to act raw all the time. Steph says, this is the content I want to see from them. Tina says, Meghan Markle got them moves. And little Miss Ladybug said, it's nice to see them just being genuine and natural. And I have to say,
certainly has got them moves.
She does. And I was going to say, in a lot of the group chats that I'm on WhatsApp, where we were discussing the video yesterday, a lot of the focus was trying to work out whether or not Harry has rhythm or not. And I would say, because that's important.
I think he did.
And I think
he was in time.
He has.
Well, that's rhythm.
He was mostly in time, I would say. But I'd probably say he's learned a lot from Meghan.
He didn't quite have the moves that she's got, I think. Hers were much more natural than his, I would say.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can imagine those moves sort of like an all-boy posh school where the DJ's throwing down some hip-hop and everyone's dancing a little bit awkwardly.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. But I love the fact that even though it sort of has an element of that, they were still confident enough to post it up because it gives us an insight into them that we otherwise wouldn't have.
Yes, and they've decided to put that up on the 4th birthday of Lilibet, and rather than do it at the time, or that's their choice. And as Lizzie said, they've taken control over what they want to be private and what they don't, and that was a control they felt like they didn't have when they were at the palace.
And with everything we do, we say this time and time again. They are always going to polarize opinion. Some people are going to love it, some people aren't. And they have said, or Meghan said quite recently in an interview that she blocks out all the noise. She doesn't read anything, and therefore, she probably doesn't. If that's true, she probably doesn't see any of the responses anyway.
I think she released a lot. Wasn't it in one of those Netflix series? She was sat somewhere reading the Mail online, I think. So I think she.
But I mean, I don't know what it's like to have millions of followers like she does. But I imagine it would take a really long time to sift through all those comments.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Right, let's move on.
Many other things with your time.
Let's move on to her brother-in-law, William.
Yes. He thinks his family's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
So,
no, he didn't say his family.
Okay.
He said families.
Families. So everyone sort of picked up on this.
Yeah.
Because he made a comment when he was at an Army Air Corps in what was it, in
Wattisham in Suffolk.
Yeah. So what was that all about?
Well, he's Captain General of the Army Air Corps. Actually, his dad handed that over to him. We were there in Middle Wallop in Hampshire last year when the dad handed it over to William. And of course, the Army Air Corps was what Harry used to be in. So there's so many segues here. We could have got so many different lines of attack on this segue. And then William was just talking about families and how when you go away, as you do often with the army, and they may or may not be pleased to see you, families can be a mixed bag. And obviously everyone's written that up as Prince William referring to his ongoing issues with Prince Harry. And of course, they haven't spoken for the best part of 2 years. So.
Well, yeah, so, no lies told there.
Or you could say never a truer word spoken in jest. So,
There we go. We can read into it, or we could not. But he has been giving an interview to Telegraph, didn't he?
He has. I thought this
about
was
his work leading the Duchy of Cornwall.
I thought this was a really, really interesting interview, actually. And it kind of gives you some insight into how William sees his role. Now he's taken on the Duchy of Cornwall. So the Duchy of Cornwall was established in 1337 by Edward III, and it was basically to create an income for the heir to the throne.
She's got that written there. Look, 1337, established by Edward III.
Thank you, Chris. The magic of...
Don't out her secrets.
No, I'm looking at what other notes he's got in there now, actually.
All right, then,
I think the important thing to hear to note
was
is
the fact
this is the only one with notes. You and I haven't bothered.
And
this is true.
The Duchy of Cornwall is how many acres, if you don't need notes? Okay, good. 128,000 acres across 20 counties.
So tiny, small.
Yep.
Yeah.
And William has sort of been talking about his vision.
The 52nd Duke of Cornwall. Yes?
No.
Oh, that is so embarrassing.
I'm gonna Google it while Lizzie speaks.
How about, rather than talking over Lizzie, let her finish, because you're getting it wrong, Chris.
Isn't he the 25th?
I'm Googling.
Right,
Shall I carry on?
Yes.
So he's been talking about his vision for the duchy and how he sees it now he is Duke of Cornwall. And he's talked a lot about wanting it to exist for social impact, and that's making an impact for people, places, and the planet. And he tries to visit duchy land sort of every 4 to 6 weeks, and those that live there to hear about what can I do to make things better for you, to sort of be really involved. And lots of those visits aren't necessarily public engagements. He goes privately to really hear about how he could potentially make a difference and have an impact. And impact is a word we hear his team use an awful lot across everything he does. He wants to look at things and see what difference can I make to people's lives.
Yeah. Did you find out the answer?
I did, yeah. I found
it?
out that I was right, but I had the numbers in the wrong order.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
I had the 2 and the 5, but it was actually the 25th Duke of Cornwall, which makes Lizzie right on this occasion.
The confidence in which you said it was phenomenal.
It was
perfectly honest with you.
Right numbers, wrong order.
Yeah, exactly.
So the article, just to go back to that,
Lizzie's just carrying on talking.
Is that William is really here, a man on a mission, and wants to sort of be a positive force for good, and wants to sort of modernise the duchy, but without losing its community spirit. And I think it was described a bit like turning a tanker to really create change.
Did he give any idea as in terms of modernisation, what sort of direction he wants to go?
I think it is that sort of that impact to people, to going and seeing what he can really do to sort of help change their lives. So whether that's, you look at some of the projects across duchy land, there is supporting mental health in farmers, there is combating rural loneliness, there's trying to help tackle homelessness. It's looking at what the land can be used for to help people who live and work there, and some of the issues that those people face. And I think we have seen William, he spoke in an interview he gave to British media travelling in South Africa at the end of last year. He said, I want to do royal with a small r, and that's looking at kind of the impact he can have through the role that he has.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I was only going to say, you think about what his dad did, and he had that Duchy of Cornwall land for a very long period of time, and he changed it to sort of match his beliefs. He made it much more sustainable, organic. But, I mean, it is really odd, particularly after we had the controversy about the Duchy of Cornwall recently, and how it's basically taking money off the NHS to rent land for ambulances, or charging the Royal Navy to use a strip of land to park a boat on, and even the prison at Dartmoor. Do you remember those stories?
Yeah.
And the trouble is, when you run an estate, you're trying to make a profit. You're trying to make whatever it is, £23 million a year, which funds his life, his office, the work of him and Kate. But at the same time, he's trying to not be the landlord. He's trying to be the guy that does good and has impact and builds homes. It is a very difficult role you've got to play, because at the end of the day, his money comes from these people paying their rent.
Of course, but also as a landowner, if he goes in this direction, perhaps it would encourage other landowners who own huge swathes of land across the country to also do good with
leading by example.
Exactly. And I think perhaps, that could end up being, quite a big deal in terms of what he's remembered for during his time.
But it's not all little remote houses dotted around Cornwall, for example. It's across 20 counties, as Lizzie was saying. And actually, one plot of land famously owned is a B&Q DIY store in Milton Keynes. So it is about revenue generation at the end of the day. And I think it's just how he makes that money and whether he's doing it sustainably and for the good of those who live on his land.
I think it's interesting, actually, when you look at, how William is undertaken this role as a whole, and you see that he has far fewer patronages than his father and his grandmother would have taken on, and because he says he wants to really focus in on the patronages that he has, or the causes that he has decided to put his time into, and to put as much sort of knowledge and effort into them rather than spreading himself too thin.
Let's move on to our archive section. We're going back to 1977 and the Silver Jubilee, but I think I'm going to show you some pictures now, but I feel like we should see it through your eyes, Chris.
Well, only because within this studio, I'm the only one who was alive in 1977.
Well, my notes here say we're going to be seeing Chris's own memories of the Silver Jubilee, which then prompted me to go, how old are you, Chris?
I know.
Because I wasn't even born then.
Which I think was you giving me a compliment without realising.
I was, because I thought you were young. I thought you were closer in age to me than that.
Yes, well, clearly that's just because I look younger, but actually I was alive in 1977.
But also say you're also a bit immature, but we won't go there.
Oh, God.
That was like a compliment given.
That was a compliment and then just slapped straight down again. Terrific.
Should we see the pictures?
Yeah, well, I think we are looking at the pictures now. But what do you remember from this time?
Well, I remember there's a couple of memories I have of this time, which was the Queen came and visited somewhere in Hampshire where I was living at the time. And everyone had, like they do, flowers to give the Queen and all the rest of it. And me and my sister didn't have anything. So all we had in our pockets was a toffee. So my sister was dispatched to the Queen and gave her last toffee.
No.
And I gave my last toffee to Prince Philip.
No.
Yeah, in the Silver Jubilee.
How have you never told that story before?
And how is it possible? Did they look at the toffee and just throw it in the bin?
Did you actually give him a toffee?
Yes, I actually gave him my last toffee.
I cannot believe, as royal editor, we have never, ever heard this.
I've worked with Chris.
I've never shared it before.
I've worked with Chris for 8 years, and he
didn't know the toffee story. So
this story has emerged.
There we go. So whether they appreciated it and thought, oh, these poor children with bare feet, and
they definitely didn't eat
rags.
your toffee. They definitely didn't eat your toffee.
Like a kid's
but I also remember that we had some kind of it's fancy dress thing somewhere to celebrate the Silver Jubilee, and you didn't go on Amazon in those days. You might not remember this, but
they didn't have computers or mobiles in those days.
Didn't exist. Amazon. You didn't go on Amazon and order your fancy dress. Your mum had to make it for you. So my mum made me into an apple tree. Why on earth she made me into an apple tree? It had like red apples all over, brown trousers and a green top, and I must have just went around the place.
What was the creative thought process?
You're asking a 4-year-old what the creative thought process was. You need to get my mum on the podcast and ask her.
I really, really need to get your mum on the podcast.
Yeah.
This
why an apple tree?
Wow.
I think my sister was bluebell. I can't remember. Anyway.
So you weren't both fruit?
No.
No.
One's a flower while I was fruit. Apple tree.
Well, maybe you just stamped your feet and demanded to be an apple.
Everyone in the 1970s had brown trousers, so it was probably not too hard to find a pair of brown cords.
Yeah.
So that's what I went as to this celebration.
I now really want that picture printed on a T-shirt, and we just wear that picture.
Every week.
Yeah,
every week. I've actually messaged the parents and asked if they can get, but because they're a different generation, they probably won't see the message for another week, and then they'll have to dig around.
We'll be here next week, so don't forget to bring. We're not forgetting
slides. My dad has a load of slides that you put on a projector, so he'll probably have to go into his slide catalogue and find the picture. So.
I'm going to get so much joy from this pictures next week. We are going to get so much joy.
We are.
We really are.
I don't even think they've read the message yet. So,
well, do thank them for us when they do hand these pictures over.
I love those Jubilee moments though, because they are a real sort of coming together of the country, different communities coming together. It's always. there
You
was...
like her just so young, you probably don't remember the golden.
I remember the platinum though.
Yeah,
So
and I think that's what the important thing
that's
is.
the
Yeah.
important one.
What's the Queen been up to? She's been shaking hands with,
trees.
I can't believe I say this, 2 moss people,
She's been shaking hands with people dressed up as trees.
right?
Yeah, so
Why?
I don't know. She was.
Chris, you could have
Oh,
been.
wow.
Chris, you
I could have been one of them.
Chris could have been there, dressed up.
Are you
as
sure
out.
that's
There were
not
some
you,
red-
Chris?
If there were some red apples on that would be me.
So this was a big lunch event at
Okay.
Eden Dock in Canary Wharf, which is a vibrant and biodiverse space.
What
and
do the
these
tree
moss
people do?
people
What do they do the rest of the day?
are representing sculptures installed at the site to increase biodiversity.
Okay.
But what I love about this job is you just never quite know what you're going to get next.
I bet
And-
she doesn't really know what she's going to get
No, and
next.
they love it when like fun stuff happens that's completely unexpected.
Last week when we were talking about geopolitics from Canada, we didn't know that this week we'd be talking about 2 moss-covered statues in East London and Harry
Twerking.
and Meghan twerking in a
No.
Labour room. So
I mean, the variety we get on the
it's
show
so much variety.
is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the Queen, her favourite writer, one of her favourite writers is Peter James, who writes murder mysteries.
Yes.
And she is going to be featured in one of his books.
Well, apparently Roy Grace is her favourite detective,
Yeah.
so it says in the literature of these books. So Peter James has, in his new novel, has written the Queen into it. So
Amazing.
it goes along the lines of something like she's on the royal train and her aide or assistant or protection officer gets shot by a sniper, and then obviously Roy Grace, Detective Grace, has to go into Buckingham Palace to find out what happened.
This is brilliant.
The Hawk is dead, a killer in the palace. That's going to be called. And Camilla is an avid reader. She's passionate about literacy, and so I think this is really nice. And I'm sure she'll be very excited.
British viewers and listeners to this podcast may well recognise the name Roy Grace. And why would that be, Chris?
Because there is an ITV show called Grace, which is based on Roy Grace. So
Yes.
I'm sure viewers in other parts of the world might be able to see it as well.
Well, yeah, and it features one of my friends, Richie Campbell, who plays alongside DCI
Of course,
Grace.
you know
I
someone who
knew.
is in it.
Of course she does.
And I have another
Any
little...
of your friends in it?
Funny enough,
No, none of my friends
Well, I've
either.
got another little tidbit.
Oh,
They will be filming the Series 6 this summer. So
This
we'll be
is in
getting...
the palace, maybe.
Now that would be amazing.
Well, I think
No,
the book,
actually, we
the
need
book
to-
comes
we
out
need-
later in the year, I think, doesn't it? So
we need to maybe get the podcast to go to one of the filming sessions at the palace.
that would be really cool.
that would be cool.
So I'll leave you.
Well,
to
no,
it.
it's your friend.
Your friend,
So
you
we'll
know
leave
the
that with
people in
you.
there.
Oh, you leave that with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To try and get into the currently being refurbished palace to be able to
Yeah.
record an episode.
So that-
Yeah, sure, I'll get that sorted.
Good.
Are you with us next week? Because you're going to Monaco.
I am going to Monaco.
Why?
So Prince William is in Monaco at the weekend. He is attending the Blue Economy and Finance Forum.
That's a mouthful.
That's a mouthful. He is. It is World Oceans Day on Sunday, and Prince William is there as founder of the Earthshot Prize. He has done a lot of work in terms of the environment, and he is there, and he will be making a speech.
Don't forget, he was recently, although the King publicly went to Sir David Attenborough's new film called Oceans with David Attenborough, William paid a private visit to that. So he has a very big connection with David Attenborough, and obviously his concern. And you also think about the Earthshot Prize that William's got, that one of the 5 categories is restoring and reviving our oceans.
Yes.
So World Oceans Day is always on the 8th of June every single year. And this year he's making a big speech on Sunday.
So I'm going to go and listen to it, and I will report back next.
So you're leaving
week.
both of us?
Yes, both of you.
I'm surplus
here.
to requirements.
Right.
Yeah.
And what can you bring us back from Monaco? Sweet.
That's not a bad idea. What do I do in
Yeah.
Monaco? She's also going to Nice as well, which is
yeah.
the UN Oceans
yacht, maybe?
Conference. Nice
Oh,
and
yeah,
Monaco.
bring us back a yacht.
Yeah, that would
Actually,
be-
just bring me back a yacht.
Okay.
And then I'll decide whether Chris can come on the
Duck.
yacht.
but I'll be back in time,
Yeah, see what
so.
you can bring us back. Something
French.
French from Nice would be really nice.
Leave it with me.
Yeah,
Oui.
thank you very much. I cannot wait to hear all about it. Right, that's it for now. We'll be back next week as ever. You can watch every episode on ITVX and YouTube, as well as listen on your favourite podcast platform. Don't forget to subscribe to show that you're enjoying the show and leave us a review. And if you want to get in touch and email to comment on anything that we've spoken about today, please do. It's talkingroyals@itv.com. I'm going to take the maple syrup home and make pancakes for the kids, and I will definitely
Take some
bring
photos.
pictures, take some photos,
Obscure their faces.
obscure their faces, a la Meghan for the show next week. Enjoy Monaco.
Thank you.
We'll all three of us will be back in the studio next week. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.